Well, hello again and welcome to Blue Garden Cottage. We're in the kitchen today and I'm going to be sharing with you some of the things that I've been doing in the week as far as harvest and foraging goes in lots of different ways. As you know, last week we did the garden and I did some harvesting there. I've done some tidying up and sorting out, and now I've been doing some ever since then as well, because of course, as you know, we do lots of bits every single day in between all chaos. Let's get on to showing you what harvesting and foraging means for me in this last week, because it's different things at different times in all different ways. So let's get on with that. Obviously not an edible one, but it is definitely a lovely harvest and forage to have from the garden. As you can tell, I've obviously got the gladioli and the zinnias in there, but I've also included sprays of seeds from the chard, some buddleia, and some nigella seed pods because they're so structural and do well in flower arrangements. So I'm just going to stick them all together in a little vase or even a tall clear glass bottle or something I have to just fit it all in as a loose decoration, nothing specific. I don't have any skills in flower arranging, I just stick stuff together. And so that will just be part of harvesting to put some prettiness of the garden in the house. I've also harvested some Sweet William seeds, and those will be scattered in a specific place in the front garden so I can start moving some more of the flowers into the front garden. I've also harvested the 2 flower heads from the honeysuckle that I have in the back garden, and these actually do have a scent. I am going to pick the flowers off, take the heels off, and put them in the freezer until I have more harvest, or just to add these with something else to make cordial or even jelly or something like that, or just add them to tea. So I will freeze those. There's not much. Hopefully now I've cut them, the plant will put out some more flowers. It does have a lovely scent to it. So they're using the honeysuckle because apparently they are edible. I have seen people make jelly out of them and cordials, so why not? Got some gherkins. They'll need pickling. I'm going to sort them out hopefully today or tomorrow, maybe Friday. The courgettes, one accidentally, I didn't see it, was hiding underneath, got quite big. This is great to chop up in big chunks, or even smaller square chunks, freeze it, and then put in curries and soups and stews and things just for the extra bits of fibre, because I don't peel them. I have dried some in the past to do for the same thing. You use it as you would the fresh ones, but you'd need to either soak them overnight or put them in your stews first thing and then leave it cook for a number of hours. But I would rehydrate them before using them. But yeah, drying vegetables, and talking about drying, I don't grow mushrooms, so I can't harvest from the garden. But a neighbor came by last week with a great big bag full of mushrooms for us, and it piled high on the truck. And my son did it for me because I had my hands full at the time. I was busy. My son sliced them all up for me, and I came and arranged them in the dehydrator. Love the dehydrator. Dried them all, and it condensed into these 2 jars. Now there was a big tray piled high. There was a huge amount of mushrooms, and they all, because they're dried, they condensed into these 2 jars. Now, if I wanted to, I could have dried them even further. I mean, they were already paper dry. They snapped, and you can hear them snap when they dry, so then you know they're dry properly. Have put them in a little blender and powdered them, and then used them to make in soups and stocks and mushroom gravy. So they can be used in all sorts of ways. I tried to eat one dry as you would dried fruit, and it doesn't taste bad at all. It tastes quite nice actually. However, it dries your mouth out. So we'll leave that one for cooking and not snacking like crisps. Yeah, that one is going on the shelves ready for winter because it'll keep for a long time, actually for about 6 months, really dried like that, and then they'll start going a bit leathery because this isn't vacuum sealed. If you want to keep it long-term storage, then you really do need to vacuum seal your jars of dried foods. I'll show you that another time when I've got round to doing that. Okay, and then my lemon balm, I had loads of that. These are now paper dry. I can crush them up more and stick them in jars as well to be used in teas or pomanders for baths or however else, for medicinal use. But even as medicinal use, I'd use them as a tea. So, and yes, that is actually, lemon balm is very good at helping to clarify your mind and help with concentration, and it's just so nice. It smells lovely. You should have smelt it as well. I was stripping the leaves off the stems and put them in there. It smells beautiful. Even my son commented how lovely they smell. And as you remember, the onions I harvested the other week are dry now, but some of them, like this one, was damaged on the bottom there by the roots, and the skin is splitting continually there as it dries. This will not store, but it's dry, so it's ready to be used. So I'll use that immediately. The ones that have dried nicely, I just tidy them up. As long as the roots aren't damaged, I'll trim it off there. And as long as the roots aren't damaged on the bottom of the onion, there's no damage. Then I can either just put them in the basket and leave them aired, or I'll put a link in the top of the video and the end card to the video I done about that. I've done sorting onions out a while back. So there's those, the onions. That's the onions sorted. And as I've mentioned before about different types of harvest, there is obviously, just like the courgettes and the gherkins, the usual harvest. I got some beetroot here. There were 2 that were ready like this yesterday. Absolutely lovely. So this one will be had. I love having them raw and fresh, either julienned or grated up in salad. Delicious. I can boil them and eat them fresh, like, boiled, but I don't like boiling them. I like them either. Oh, we wish we could grow a huge amount so that we could make a relish. I'll show you that another time as well. And then, of course, the beetroot leaves, the very young ones, especially these little ones, they could be used in salads, even slightly bigger than that. And these still okay, slightly more tough, used in salads, but you could also chop them up because they're edible, use them like spinach. Flowers turned out quite nice, I think. So I'm happy with that, and they'll look nice on the hearth by the fire. Another harvest, or foraging rather, is foraging from the store cupboard to make the breads and scones and other little things that I use and make from the store cupboard. And I have actually used beans quite often from the store cupboard in this last week, just because finances are so tight, as I've said before, in this space of 5 months, that we are relying more on our store cupboard. So between the garden and the food storage cupboard, we're doing quite well for our self-reliance in our food and trying to keep costs down. So I encourage you to think about how you use food, what foods you use, and what you would do if you had to forage your own. So it's a couple of hours later, after doing a fair bit of running around and cooking supper and then cleaning up again, and here we are again. Ooh, refocus. I have chopped up the gherkins. Well, I sliced them up into chunky slices and layered them in salt, and it is already sucking out a huge amount of fluid, and that will help taking out all the water with the salt layers, will help take out too much fluid, and it will make it nice and crunchy. Some courgettes I have very finely shredded up with some very finely shredded onion, both from the garden, the onion and the courgette. So that was good to have that from the garden. And I mixed in a tiny bit of balsamic vinegar, some fresh lemon juice and some honey, and then mixed it all up and left it for a couple of hours to sort of pickle, and had that with some salad with our homemade chickpea burgers, which in my book, on a technicality on the ingredients, it's a falafel. But it was very, very tasty. So we had that. There's some leftovers for lunch tomorrow that will go with the salad. That would be really nice. So using Garden Harvests, store cupboard and foraging, because just the other day we found some wild plums, the little Mirabelle ones. And we were walking, actually. We went for a bit of a walk, and we were thinking how we haven't been foraging properly for years. Absolutely years. Just because life had become so hectic and so busy, and our physical abilities had taken a hit, and so we just we stopped foraging. And we used to enjoy foraging with the children. Really enjoyed it. So we were determined that come next year we were going to start foraging again, just because we missed doing it. It was lovely to be able to be out in the fresh air and find stuff to forage. So we'll be taking up our foraging hobby again next year. Well, we're determined to get a bit more time. Also, I forgot to mention all those aronia berries that I harvested out the garden when I showed you the garden video. I did that last week. Half of them I dehydrated, and some of them have gone in the freezer. The dehydrated ones I can use for making the mixing with blackcurrant and making a cough syrup out of it, with all the spices and honey and everything else that we need to make a cough syrup. And I can make cordials, and I can make syrups from the dried ones. The frozen ones, them I will use in smoothies and in fruit crumbles and things like that. So yeah, it's been nice to have some more harvest from the garden. We still have some left, so I shall harvest those when I can next week. What else is there? Oh, there's still plenty I can harvest from the garden. Even the sweet potatoes, the leaves, the very young leaves, you can use as salad, so I can harvest them. There's plenty still out there. And we haven't really been actually making full harvests in the garden. Like I said, it has actually been foraging, so that's pretty good. There is still quite a lot in the garden growing. Yes, I actually saw some butternut squash. Right over there's some there growing. So hopefully there's enough of the season, and I'll make sure I feed it frequently. At this stage, at least twice a week, and I'll make sure I'll stop the plants growing now so that all the energy can go into the fruit. I'll just cut off the growing tips and make sure that those fruit that are there get all the energy now. The tomatillos are starting to fill out. There's fruit in there, but they're not big. They're only about that big. So it won't be long before we have some pretty exciting first harvest ever of these. But again, I think we'll be foraging more than harvest, because we don't have enough to have a glut of a harvest in one go. But that's okay. I'm harvesting, or rather foraging, for all sorts of bits, even the herbs. And my one and only echinacea has come up. One plant, so I'll save those seeds, let it go to seed and save it for next year. I just want to take a seat for a moment. Oh, I've still got to sort all those seeds out there for the Russian kale. so that I've got some things to sprout for fresh greens in the winter. I think that's the key thing about foraging. It doesn't have to mean foraging from wild food. It doesn't have to mean just edible foods. It could be anything. It could even be foraging usable stuff from, when you go skip diving, so to speak, when somebody's chucking something out and you can use it and ask if you can have it. Like that first dollhouse I found for my granddaughter. That was a skip dive find. Took nothing more than a bit of a scrub and a clean out and a bit of a redecorate, and perfectly good, and that was foraged from outside of home. So I think it's important to think of foraging in other terms as well. Buttons! Oh, she's wandered off again. I need to go and check her. In her old age, she's eating all sorts of things that she really shouldn't be eating. So I better love you and leave you with that now. I hope that you have chance to forage something from somewhere of use, and that will bring some joy in some measure. Let me know what you've recently foraged, whether from your garden or outside or anything usable. Just let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on foraging and harvests and using them. I think next year I'm going to do videos that include not just the growing of the plants individually, but then how I use them and how I store them, and then how I use the stored things, as well as some recipes. I think I shall do that next year when it comes to growing of the food. Alright people, way too much time has passed now. I have a mountain still of work to do. So I will speak to you again next week, being a craft week, and I will have made the patterns for the Tudor doll house, and I have something to show you of another find that we got last week, which will actually be quicker and easier than something else I'm doing, and it's a craft thing. So I can't wait to show that to you next week. Until then, have a good week, and I'll chat with you soon. Bye bye.